My mountain life, it's early morning, like 6:30 in the morning, Mother's Day, May 12th, and this is a serviceberry, and we have lots of serviceberries in the forest. This is the only one that I'm seeing right now that's blooming. Oh, there's a second one over on the other side. Now, serviceberries they're part of the rose family, and the berries are not bad, but the reason you don't see them in the markets is because they don't keep, and they actually, if you don't eat them really quick off the trees, they won't, you can't put them in the, I guess you could put them in the freezer maybe, I don't know, maybe you can make jam and stuff out of them, but serviceberries aren't really, they don't keep very well, and so you don't find them in the grocery stores. Now, the one thing nice about serviceberries, not only are they in the wild, but and they're very easy to grow, but they mature or they ripen at different times. So anyway, it's kind of interesting that you can like eat them over a period of a week or two or three, I guess, I don't know, because they don't all ripen at once. They all kind of like slowly ripen at different times. That's what I've seen. But that isn't the reason for the video. Today, I told you that I was going to go over and talk about all the different varieties of things that I have. So I'm watering today because it's getting a little warmer in the trees I just planted. So I thought I would start in the new orchard, which is the south orchard, to give you a concept of what kind of varieties I have of things. But I'm going to do Asian pears today, or Asian plums, Asian plums. The reason I'm going to do Asian plums is I have no intention of adding any more this year, so I'll add more next year. So I thought I'd start here because it's kind of still, the sun's just coming up now, so the trees that are of any size and age, I want you to be able to see those better. So these are kind of the newer ones that I have planted. Now, the whole concept is over on this side of the orchard, you can see I've got marked out flags for where the future trees will go, and then you can see can't really see the sticks that are the trees, but you can see the little tags on them as they are up in the, as you look out there, you can see the little tags. Those are European plums for the most part, but right on this edge here, so from here all the way down on the right side, which would be the west side, are Asian plums, and then all the way from here all the way on the right side, or the left side, or the east side are going to be cherry trees, if I can get them to grow. And then behind the cherry trees are European pears. And that's the concept of this particular orchard. It depends on how well things do. I suspect that the plums will do fine because the rootstocks the plums are on, they're either on St. Julian rootstock from Rain Tree Nursery, which from everything I've read and researched is supposed to be okay for heavy clay, so they should be fine. And then there are some that I'm going to be receiving from Cummins Nursery next year, and that I have now that are on the Maraballen rootstock, and according to what I read on them, they're okay with heavy clay as well. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that they love heavy clay. I'm just suggesting to you that they do probably better than other rootstocks. So, for example, these cherry trees that I have planted on the east side, or the left side of us looking south, they're not on any rootstocks that are recommended for heavy clay. I've tried to amend that and make that as best I can for these trees, but they may not do very well. As far as the European pears, there's two different rootstocks generally. that you find European pears are. And I say generally because it's not always the case, but they're on what they call, I think they're called Oxford 87 and Oxford 97. One's a little bigger than the other one, but from what I've researched on those seem to do, or supposed to be able to do okay in heavy clay. And that's evidenced by the Ur and the early gold, which, by the way, I don't know what rootstocks they're on specifically, but I'm guessing they're on 87 or 97 because those trees have done pretty decent in this orchard. The only ones I'm having trouble with, which I'll go over in the future, are cherry trees. They don't do very well here, and they do well in my home orchard because the soil is different. Just out of interest, I did notice something. These are freshly planted trees, and so I wasn't really expecting anything. And here, this specific tree here is called a heartland, and you can see that it has blossoms on it. Now, it's a very young tree, but they're just cherries. They're not going to probably hurt the tree, I wouldn't think. Usually you want the tree to, when it's newly planted, to concentrate on putting its root system down. But I don't know if I really am all that concerned. However, I don't really expect that these cherries will actually pollinate, because I don't, unless they're going to pollinate with the serviceberry, which I don't think really happens. I don't think it's going to really amount to anything, because I don't think there's anything on the other cherry trees I have here. Okay, so let's start. We'll start on the outside, and I'll look in and I'll show you one of the trees, which I'll actually talk about in detail later in a future video. But this tree right here that I planted, this is from Cummins Nursery, and this is a Lavina. And Lavina is supposed to be from Lithuania. This is an Asian plum. It's doing pretty decent. The soil in this little area here is like what you'd expect in a forest, because this is right on the edge of a little forested area. And it's actually, I think, going to do pretty good. And I'll explain that in a future video when I discuss the Lavina in detail and why I think it's probably a pretty good plum. But it comes from Lithuania, but I think the original parent had some I guess parentage from the Crimea. So that's my understanding of what I read about the Lavina. The one thing I did read about it is that it's one of the few plums that I read that says that it can grow okay in partial shade. That's why I planted it here, because I thought, well, all these great big huge choke cherries right here, you know, it'll be partially shaded here. But what I found is it's actually not necessarily partial shade. It just gets morning sun and late afternoon sun, which is probably about perfect. But we'll talk about that in a future video. Just today, I'm just going to talk about the various varieties I have. These are, by the way, the Lavina would be some kind of hybrid, cherry plum, whatever, hybrid, but it's not an American hybrid. It's a European hybrid. So the next one we'll talk about is, this is a Methley. This is a fairly well-known plum, and this is from Raintree Nursery. And so far I don't have any leaves at all on this, but I think some might come out, but I don't know. I did actually originally buy this tree on semi-dwarf, but they said they had a total loss of their semi-dwarfs for some reason on the Methleys, and so they sent me a dwarf instead, and that's fine. It'll still get like 12 feet high. The one thing about this place that I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to show you some of this. This right here, These are what's left of, oh, here's a great example. So this right here, this is a white clematis. This is a white clematis. And I'm going to show you something absolutely fascinating about clematis that people don't even know. This is a clematis. I'll put my hand on it. This is a clematis. This is from a white clematis. This is a vine. And when you first look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, this vine is like, it's not native. You're thinking that it's an invasive species. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's just gonna, you know, climb these trees and then ruin them or whatever. But it's actually native to our region. And so I'm trying to actually keep it as much as I can, because in order to grow to this thickness, you know, it's got to be old. It's got to be here for a long time to get to that thickness. Anyway, pretty cool. But back to the Asian plum. Sorry, got sidetracked. I love trees. I love plants, as you can tell from my past videos and this one. And I love observing them. Anyway, so Methley, we're hoping this Methley will come out and put some leaves out. I've scratched it a couple times, so I don't know. It seems to be still green, so we're hoping it'll come out with some leaves. Methley, I believe, is a true Asian plum, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. The next one is an Emerald Butte. So this is Emerald Butte, again from Rain Tree Nursery, and you can see the leaves coming out on it, so it's doing all right. And I gave it some water last night. So but Emerald Butte, I can't tell you much more about it except for the fruit, I guess, is a little bit elongated, and I think it matures a little later than most of the other Asian plums, but I may be wrong. All right, we'll move on to this one. This I know is a true, or I guess I don't know, not this one. I was thinking of the other one. This is a Sprite, and what's interesting is, look, blooms on it, and I just planted it, so we got little blooms right here, down here. I don't know what it's gonna pollinate with, unless it can pollinate with the toka a long ways away. But so the Sprite is a Asian plum that has really small, almost a little bit bigger than cherry sized plums, from what I understand. So at least from Rain Tree. Again, this is from a Rain Tree Nursery purchase. But it's got leaves on it, doing pretty good, and blossoms, which surprised me to see that. Next, we have the Hollywood. This one was from Rain Tree Nursery, and I didn't do all this, by the way. These are, I think, from Rain Tree Nursery, scratching it because they're trying to figure out if this tree is okay to send to somebody. It has no leaves yet, but I think it might break out. The thing about the Hollywood, okay, so Hollywood is one of the inventions or cultivars that Burbank came up with, from what I understand. This is a Rain Tree Nursery one, and it's one of the few trees that has burgundy leaves. So it's hard for me to tell whether the leaves are coming out, because I'll have these little starts, and I don't know, because they're burgundy, they're going to be the same color as the trunk of the tree, so it's going to be hard to kind of tell initially. But I don't know exactly how great the fruit is. I kind of read some mixed reviews on it. It's not one of the Burbank's more common ones, except for the leaf color. People really like it for that reason. People more or less discuss the Santa Rosa as probably the more common one you hear about. But I like the coloration of the leaves, and I thought that it would be great for having a different variety to try out. Next, we have one of the more common Burbanks. I call them Burbanks, but more common Japanese plums from Burbank that's called a beauty. And there's little leaves popping out on this. Beauty's going to be okay. And beauty actually, some people like beauty better than the Santa Rosa. So again, these are all probably from California initially, the Hollywood and the beauty. So we're looking forward to seeing what kind of fruit this one will put out when it gets to that point. This is a Cummins nursery purchase. This is a vampire, and from what I read, the leaves are coming out on it. It's doing really good. And by the way, the rootstock, I was really impressed with the rootstock when I got, or the roots. But I think they're Maribalan, but when I got them from Cummins, the roots are just huge. And the trunk, you can see how big the caliper of the trunk is. So very impressed with that, with the tree from Cummins so far. Vampire is supposed to be a red fruit with a red interior. That's why they call it vampire, of course. And it's supposed to be really tasty too. So I'm excited for this tree to do really well in our orchard. Next we have an interesting one. This is called Cuban Comet, and this one actually has some blossoms on it also, and you can see them right here. There's like 3 of them, and it's young. I've just planted it. I am confused when I read about Cuban Comet on the Rain Tree Nursery website. This is a Rain Tree Nursery purchase, and what's confusing to me about the Cuban Comet is it says that it blooms with the Asian plums, which obviously that's what it's doing, right? But it acts, or they talk about it as if it's almost got European parents or some sort of ancestry to it. Now, to understand the difference between Japanese plums and European plums seem to be like a step higher on the evolutionary scale. I'm just taking this from what I read and I research on it, which is kind of a strange thing because American plums and Japanese plums, I believe they have fewer chromosomes or something like that than the European plums. So some people say that even if you have European plums bloom at the same time as Japanese plums, they won't pollinate each other. But one of the big reasons that the nurseries say that you're not going to get cross-pollination with a European plum and a Japanese plum is because they don't bloom at the same time. That's what they say. But then you read some other like scientific documents or research, and they go even one step further, and they even suggest, well, they're so different genetically that you're not going to be able to cross-pollinate them anyway, even if they did bloom at the same time. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a fact because I could be wrong. This is just something that I'm reading like in different places, so I just find that kind of interesting. However, the Cuban Comet, when Rain Tree Nursery talks about it in their description, they make it sound like this has some European like ancestry to it, which kind of makes sense because Japanese plums are from China initially and then into Japan, but the European plums are from, like, I guess Western Europe maybe, or maybe Eastern Europe, and then there's got to be some cross or some ancestry somewhere between these two, right? At some point, you would think, before they broke off and they became separate, like major species or whatever. And so apparently this one may have some ancestry that's closer related to European plums than any other of the Asian plums or American Asian hybrids. I don't know. It may or may not be true. There's another one called Cuban Delight, and I'm not sure. You got Cuban Comet, Cuban Delight. Are they like cousins? I don't know, like the cultivars. But anyway, this tree's doing really well, by the way. You can see all the leaves popping out on it. And I actually planted this one, I think, after some of the other ones. And it's just gone gangbusters. And it's got little blooms on it already. Next we have one called the Early Golden Asian Plum, and this is probably one of the first ones I planted. This one is supposed to have fruit that matures earlier in the year than I believe any other Asian plum that I have. So any other variety or cultivar I have. As far as like how good is it tasting and all of that, I don't really know. And the forums basically kind of, they don't really say a lot. Like, I don't hear people say, oh, I love the Asian or the early golden. They only really talk about it in the sense that that's one of the first ones you get. It blooms or it matures, and you can pick the fruit probably earlier than any of the Asian plums. Now we enter, these two passed away, which I really wonder, this was a Cohico from Rain Tree Nursery, and it didn't come back this year. And the other one's an Oblinja, and it didn't even really have, the leaves are really tiny, tiny leaves. So here's the Oblinja that passed away. It didn't even have a year. Okay, so this is a Toka. So I've already shown in some of my older other videos the Tokas that I have, but this is a Toka. This was purchased from a local nursery called Plantland, and it's been a pretty impressive tree. It's blooming. Maybe it can pollinate those other little ones over there. Maybe not. I don't even know if I want the little ones that I just planted to produce any fruit anyway. But so Toka, I always want to talk a little bit about it as I pass by trees. But so Tokas was invented, or was, I guess I call it invented, but it was developed at South Dakota University. And here's what happened. In the United States, people were bringing over mostly European plums from Europe, but then we had some influences from Asia, and people wanted to bring over some Asian plums too, or Japanese plums. That's another reference to them. But the problem is that there wasn't a lot of places they would grow. Like California, they grow great, you can grow them in California, no problem. But in the northern western states, especially like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, those places, it was difficult for anybody to grow plums at all because the winters got so cold. And so in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, a lot of the universities were trying to figure out what kind of, they're trying to come up with cultivars or varieties that they can grow in the colder environments. And this one is actually one of the coldest growing Japanese plums, and it's actually a Japanese-American hybrid. Basically, anywhere that I'm aware of, this is a Zone 3 Japanese plums, and although we have some Zone 4s, most Japanese plums are Zone 5. So, but this area that I'm in now is supposedly Zone 5B. So we're supposed to be able to grow pretty much any of the Japanese plums. But this one is a Zone 3. The other thing I'll tell you about it is it's really well known for being a great bloomer, long-time bloomer, and for other Japanese plums. It's an American-Japanese hybrid, so there's American plums, but people don't really grow them in orchards because they're not as, I guess, palatable. The taste of them isn't as sought after. The Native Americans ate them, but out of the 3 different categories of plums, which are European, American, and Japanese, American are the least desired for most people. But they're actually pretty hardy plums, from what I understand. So this plum tree, the one thing I'll tell you about it is it's an aphid magnet. I've heard that, I've read it from other people, and I can attest to it. So if there's aphids in your orchard, they are going to gravitate towards this tree before anything else. That's my experience. I don't know what it is. The leaves are just like candy to aphids. And I've already talked about this in the past, and I'll actually put out a video in the future that talk about some of the pests that you have to deal with. But it's not such a bad thing, by the way, because it's like if you get aphids, at least you know where to look. Like I only have to look at these trees. I don't have to look at anything else. I just look at my tocas. And if I see aphids in there, then I know, okay, well, I've got a little bit of an aphid infestation. And then you can decide what you're going to do, if you're going to do anything about it at all. So this tree's, I've got 5 of these tocas. And the reason I have 5 tocas is because I actually brought some fruit to work one day. And I allowed people to try it. You know, I have people sample it. And people were telling me, oh my gosh, you need more of these trees. Like this fruit is absolutely incredible. It's a surprising fruit because it tastes, they call it bubble gum, but to me it doesn't taste like bubble gum. What it tastes like is one of those candy hearts, you know, you get at Valentine's Day, the pink ones. It tastes like that, like those little, I don't know, chalky type candies. That's what it tastes like to me. And I just can't believe how just like candy it tastes. It's like natural, it's like nature created this, and it tastes just like you would eat a piece of candy. So it's actually pretty shocking. And I would tell people that if you get a chance, try a toca and just see what you think. It's not what you expect when you see a plum. Toca is a really good tree, and some people say it's self-pollinating, and other places say it isn't. I don't know the truth of the matter. This tree right here is a little bit struggling or not coming quite out yet. This is a black ice. I have 3 black ices, and this is probably the one that doesn't look really that great right now, but it's in the colder part of the orchard, and so that's number 1. Number 2, black ices seem to be one of the last ones to bring out their leaves and their blooms, at least so far from what I'm seeing. Now, black ice, I've actually said in the past, this is another American Japanese hybrid. So just like the toca, they did some testing or some breeding back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And they came up with some different varieties, and the parentage is like a cherry plum or a cherry something, and then the Japanese plum. I don't know if it's a cherry plum or actual cherry, I don't know, like a sand cherry or something. But anyway, they came up with this variety. I've said in the past that this is probably one of my favorite varieties, and I'm going to give you some reasons why the black ice is one of my favorites. I maybe have already mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. So here are the reasons. Number 1, the tree is compact. So it naturally grows to about 10 feet tall because of its heritage from the American side. It doesn't grow huge, and that's just natural. The one in the home orchard, which I'll show you when we walk out there, isn't really all that large. That's number 1. Number 2, the plums taste as you'd expect a plum to taste. So the expectation that you would expect when you take the black ice plum and eat it is what you would expect. So it's not a big surprise. You don't want people saying it's too sweet. It's like, I wanted a plum and I got a plum. Number 3, it's practically pest-free. Maybe that's because I plant it with the toca and that's the one that attracts the pests. I don't know. But I have hardly ever had to deal with anything with the black ice. But it does need a cross-pollinator. It's not like reportedly possibly self-pollinating. It does need a pollinator with it. So that would be one of the downsides if you have a small orchard or small yard or whatever. So it's pest-free. It's easy to grow. You plant it, you water it for the first year. Nature takes over from there, depending on a bunch of different factors of your area, your soil, all of that, your climate. But it seems to be really easy. It's hardy. So it's a zone 4, not a zone 3, but a zone 4. But that's still pretty good for most places. So I mean, I kept, and not only that, but it seems to be, except for this tree, doesn't show it, but it seems to be productive. Like every single year, I've had black ice plums on my trees. So maybe it's just a great tree for my area, or maybe it's just a great tree overall. I don't know. But the black ice so far has hit like on all the cylinders that I look for in a fruit tree. This one is probably the wrong one to show you when I'm talking about this, but anyway, really happy with the variety, with the cultivar of the black ice. And you need a buddy with it to pollinate it, and the toca is probably a good one to do that with, although you will probably have to fight ants and aphids a little bit. But as far as like, is it productive? I can't say that it is. I've read or heard people tell me that they find theirs productive, but my toca really hasn't been that productive. So anyway, this is the south orchard. This is a view north, and you can see that I've intentionally put this pathway in the middle, pretty wide, between these rows of trees. And people will think, well, you're wasting, you know, you could put another, like, you could have moved these trees closer or what. No, you know what? I want to have something in the future that I can really enjoy, just kind of like walking down. And my envision is to have a canopy of trees on each side, which hanging over this pathway. I think it'd be really beautiful. They do a lot of stuff like that in Japan, and I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. Kind of some of the ways that they integrate nature with you know, with your necessity to walk around and stuff. Before I go from this orchard and go and show you the other trees, this is a schoolhouse plum from Rain Tree Nursery, purchased last year. And then this is also a schoolhouse plum. And so these are some European varieties, and you can see all in here are going to be European plums. But I have 2 more coming, and so what I wanted to do was get those 2 planted, and then I'll take you through and talk about all the different varieties of European plums I have. But today we're just going to talk more specifically about the Asian plums, or Japanese plums. I will be receiving some more next year from Cummins, and I'm going to try to get a couple more from Rain Tree Nursery as well. And depending on how things perform, I may get more. I'm going to move the water here. I may receive, or I may get more. Sorry to do this while I'm videoing, but I may get some more from Rain Tree Nursery. The nice thing about Rain Tree Nursery is they have a lot of variety of trees. I really appreciate that. There's my cat. Stolter! Yeah, he's like, meow, what do you want? It's kind of funny because they'll puff their tail up when they come out into near the forest. So here's the forest right here, and my cats, they know they're out here where there's foxes and stuff, and so they puff their tails up and they're like, hey, we're much bigger, don't come after us. But we bring them in every night because raccoons and foxes, and I just don't know. This is the north orchard. This is one of the first ones I worked on. I got the gate in, so I'll put a gate in on the other side where the cat is. And then the reason that there's a gap here is because I wanted to leave this open for a road, because this is a separate parcel, and I wanted to be able to have the road go back here and connect. You can see the European plums, or pears, blooming. There's I believe it's a golden spice. a year, and then a early gold, I believe, are the three. I also will show you this. We'll go over apples, I think, maybe in the next couple days. But we got some blooms on some young apple trees here. So this is a Herald Red. So you can see it's a young tree. I just planted it last year. And this is a Rain Tree Nursery purchase. This is a Williams Pride. Then I have, again, we'll do this later, but this is a Snow Sweet. Boy, the sun's coming right up here. And then this is a Macintosh right here. Now, they're probably not that interesting to a lot of other people because a lot of other people have better luck with apples than I do, I'm sure. So, but the sun's coming up, so perfect to come to the older trees when the sun's coming up. All of these trees that I'm going to show you now in the North Orchard, these are all Japanese American hybrids. This is a black ice. I have 3 of them. This is the second of the 3. And it's got blooms on it. It actually produced, even though the size is small, this tree actually produced quite a few plums last year. And if anything, if the past is a good judge of the future, almost all these blooms will set fruit. It's really good about that. Like every one of the blossoms you see probably will be a plum or close to almost every one of them. Really good variety, I believe. Here's one of my tocas. This is the second that you've seen out of the 5. And it's doing pretty well. These 2 were purchased from a local nursery called Hooper's Nursery here. This is an alderman, and I've been frustrated with alderman. I planted 2 of them, and neither one of them would do anything. They wouldn't bloom, and they're fairly, like, I won't say they're old trees, but they're fairly, like, they've been around for a while. So why weren't you guys blooming? Well, blooms this year. So crossing my fingers and hoping we can get a taste of the alderman plum. Many other people probably have tasted it and they like them. I don't know. But so I'm excited about this one. And again, it's an I think this one came out at the University of Minnesota, if I am correct. So I don't know where the black ice came from. I know the toca came on South Dakota University, one of the universities in South Dakota, and then the alderman came out of, I'm pretty sure, Minnesota. And then we have a third toca. This one is the one that has the biggest problem with ants. And so almost every year I cut the grass down to like very low, and then I wrap the tree, put the sticky stuff on it, and I flick the ants off of it. And then after that, the ladybugs and the lacewings take care of the aphids that might be on it. This is a La Crescent, and I think this is also from Minnesota, this particular cultivar, and it has blossoms too. So I'm crossing my fingers for some fruit off the La Crescent. It's supposed to be a yellow plum, so I'm excited to give that a try and see how good that is. This tree has struggled for some reason. This is a pipestone. Again, I think this is another American-Japanese cultivar, but it has a few little plums, but you can see that this whole trunk died. So I've got this start here to go off of. Now, I've read mixed reviews on this particular cultivar, so I'm not sure if the pipestone is a good tasty one or just okay or what. These are the struggling cherries that I have here. You can probably ignore the little ones, the sticks, because those were just planted this year. It's the ones that have the white tree guards on them that have been here for a couple years. And again, heavy clay, they're not really enjoying it too much. I try to like give them water but not too much, you know, trying to see if I can get them to grow here. I might be replacing cherry trees with plum trees or something, whatever likes it in this area. I want to show you one thing before I leave. This is what they call a nanny berry. It's not quite common in our area. I think in the very bottom corner of the state you can find them, but most of them come from the Midwest, like Iowa and places like that, or South Dakota, I don't know. But I wanted to grow some berry shrubs here. I have those, so nanny berries. I wanted to kind of grow a screen along here, along where the road is. And then this is a buffalo silverberry. This is actually native to our area. I've got two different varieties of silverberry. I got buffalo silverberry and I got silverberry. I think they're different, but they might be the same. So anyway, apple trees, 3 rows of apple trees, a row of Asian plums, 2 rows of cherries, and then a row and a little smidgening of a row of European pears. And this is a patent pear, and I'll show you the blooms on this. So it's doing pretty good. It will bloom and pollinate with the summer crisp. So here's a summer crisp pear. Sorry for the sun. And there's a little bloom for that. So hopefully we can get some pears out of the patent and maybe the summer crisp. So this is the north orchard. I put this fence up all by myself pretty much. I think my stepson helped me pound the posts in, but this is I believe this is an early gold. It's almost done blooming. I think we might get some fruit out of this. It'd be kind of nice. I've never eaten one. I want to try it. This is a ewer. And then this last one is, I believe, a golden spice. We'll go over European pears when I have 3 more coming. I'm going to plant them, and then we'll go over the different varieties of European pears that I have. So what is the concept or idea that I have about the orchard? Why do I have so many different things? I have to admit, there's 2 reasons. I'll explain this while I walk. 2 reasons why. First, there's this gentleman out of Florida who does a lot of videos on mangoes, and he talks about like all these different cultivars of mangoes, and he visits people's, and you probably have seen his videos if you like watching these. This is a Honeycrisp apple tree. This is my my control. So this one I do hardly anything to. I don't really hardly water it, and I don't really do anything about the pests except for keeping the deer off of it and the voles as much as I can. So what I'm trying to find out is, this is heavy clay. Will this tree reach the water table and just take off and do really well? And if that's the case, then I'm pretty confident that my other trees will eventually get to that point. So anyway, side thing. So he does these videos on all these different cultivars of mangoes and other things too that they can grow in Florida. It's just absolutely fascinating to me, and I just thought, wow, there's people he talks to who grow all these different mangoes and other things, and they're like collectors. So I kind of like the idea of collecting different fruit trees, you know, and then that way you can offer to your friends, or you can sell them at the farmer's market, and you have all these different varieties that people can choose from and try. That's one reason. I'll tell you the second reason after I tell you what this is. This tree is an American chestnut tree. Now I got this tree, these 2, because I read about the chestnut blight in the eastern United States, and it just kind of tore my heart, because I just thought, that's just horrible that we bring in all these invasive species, we plant them, and then they they bring something else in, like a disease or whatever, and they wipe out our native species. And I just think we have a absolutely horrible control in the United States for, oh wait, wow, look at this. Wild turkey. Wild turkey. They're all over. We've got, I don't know, a whole flock of them here. But we have pheasants, wild turkeys, deer, foxes, raccoons. A grizzly bear came through 2 years ago, ate all choke cherries. Not up here where my house is, but down by the river. And then this pear tree, there was a black bear that came out a couple years ago and ate the pears that fell on the ground. But yeah, I just love wildlife. It's just really cool. Okay, so the second reason. So here's I gave you the first reason. She's running away from me. I'm just trying to get to the gate. The second reason is when I go to the farmer's market, which I intend to do, to sell the fruit that I harvest, I wanted to have something different than just bringing stuff that's from the grocery store. This is my wife's garden area. She does an absolute beautiful job. We planted a lot of different tulips and daffodils and things like that. But okay, so there's my other cat, Scamper. Come on, Stolter. So I wanted to be able to go to the local farmer's market, put up a table, and sell different fruits that people aren't going to find in the grocery store. Now, that's not going to be the case for apples that I have. I have a lot of different cultivars that are the same that everybody has. But I do have a lot of different things for plums, a lot of different cherry varieties, and pears, European pears. All right, so a couple of blueberry shrubs in here. You can kind of see them in the back. Iris growing. Currants. My wife loves currants. Raspberries. Raspberries, I've been having a really tough time getting them to really take. I've got, we'll go over the cherries in the future when they start to bloom, I hope. But I got the standard cherry trees like Lapins and Bings and Rainiers and stuff like that. But I've got some other varieties that I've got this year we'll go over. And more currants, blooming yellow. These are black currants. And okay, so we'll come over to, I've already talked about this tree. This is, I believe, an Underwood, or it's a Juanita, and I don't know any more about those two varieties than just telling you the names. I can't really speak to it. This tree produced a few plums last year, but it hasn't really been that productive. But oh my gosh, I think this year this is going to be my winner. And then I believe these are American plums of some kind, because they came from the rootstock of this one. So we'll find out. There's a lot of blossoms on here. Next we can go over to the black ice that's been my champion tree for production and being pest free and just being an absolute champion tree. This is the best tree I have in the orchard presently. So again, almost every one of these blossoms that you see up in here are going to be plums. That's my history with this tree, is that it produces quite a few plums every year. Not too many, in fact not so many that I have to thin, but enough, enough. Really happy with this tree, as you can tell. Okay, so this is the Golden Spice. Last year it had over 300 pears on it, and this year it's turning biennial, essentially, is what's happening, which is fine with me, mainly because the pears aren't extraordinary. This is another toca right there. I ran out of space inside my garden area because I still want to have grass, and so I started planting them on the outside. And this is the first toca tree I planted out of any trees, so it should have quite a bit of fruit this year, although it's done this before and then it produces hardly anything, so who knows. But we're crossing our fingers for this toca. And last is the second alderman, and this alderman has bloomed this year as well. So that is all of the Asian plums in all 3 orchards that I currently have. I have, I think, 1 or 2 or 3 coming next year. But unless I have something bad happen to another cultivar or another species like cherries or something, I'm not sure how many more I'll plant. 5 tocas, 3 black ice, 2 aldermans, a La Crescent, and then all those other varieties that you saw that are true Japanese plums, and then a few kind of odd ducks in there as well. Anyway, that's the end of this video for today. I know it's been kind of a long one, but we'll be back and we'll go over some other specific cultivars in the future. This is My Mountain Life, and we'll talk with you in the future. Hopefully you'll have a positive orchard experience as well.